Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we will be taking 3 realistic attack scenarios where you will play the Security Operations Center Analyst and Threat Hunter to analyze the incidents and extract artifacts. The common denominator of these attack scenarios is that they all start with a phishing email. The first scenario, we see a phishing email with a Windows shortcut attachment that was revealed to execute a series of PowerShell commands to exfiltrate data. You will use these set of tools to analyze the attack. The first tool is LinkParser, used to parse the contents of Windows shortcuts files and display the output in text format. In the second scenario, we have a Word document that contains a VBA macro which calls a C2 server to retrieve an executable payload that in turn creates a scheduled task for persistence. You will use these tools to analyze the attack and extract artifacts. In the third scenario, we have an HTA file, which stands for HTML application, that retrieves a DAT file, which performs a series of cyber stunts that end with compromising the main domain controller. We will use Elasticsearch to analyze this attack and extract artifacts. Alright, by analyzing these scenarios, you will have finished these 3 challenges named after the Boogeyman group in TryHackMe website, so why not we get started?
Okay, let's start with the first part, Boogeyman 1. In this scenario here, we have a phishing email again. One of the phishing emails received by one of the company employees. The company name is Quick Logistics LLC, and this is the body of the email. As with any phishing email that ends with compromise or a machine compromise, basically there should be an attachment. So there was an attachment with this email that got the employee's machine compromised. We're going to go over this attachment, and here we're given the artifacts that have been collected for the analyst. So we have a copy of the email, or the phishing email, and we have a copy of the PowerShell logs from Julian's workstation. Julian is the employee who opened the email attachment. And lastly, we have a packet capture from the same workstation. So as a threat hunter or as a SOC analyst, you will be using these artifacts to analyze what happened and extract the artifacts. Okay, so we're going to jump to task 2. Okay, before we start answering the questions, I'm going to go over the artifacts. So here we verified that we have a packet capture. Here this is the email file, and this is the PowerShell event logs in both event log format and JSON format. So going to go ahead and open the email attachment with Evolution, Mail, and Calendar. Usually we open these attachments using Outlook, Thunderbird, or any other mail client. We want to have a look at the email, okay, because usually this is the first root cause that caused the compromise. We want to have a look at the email body, the attachment, the sender, the receiver, and probably the email header. So as you can see here, it was received from Arthur and was addressed to Julian. And this is the body of the email, claiming to be, as you can see, I just want to drop you a quick note to remind you in respect of a document is due for payment. It's a classic phishing email where it pretends to be coming from a financial company or financial department or a service provider asking for a payment. And as with any payment, there should be an invoice. And of course, the attacker has provided you with an invoice in the attachment here. This invoice is in zipped format, and there is a password to unzip the file. So we're going to go ahead and save this. Copy the password. Now we head over to the zip file. Wrong password, probably because we have copied the space. So we're going to paste this. Wrong password, okay. And delete this one. Alright, so now we have the extracted files. As you can see, the extension is link, which is Windows shortcut file. Now, before interacting with any attachment that could be malicious, we have first to analyze the attachment statically. We call it static malware analysis. And this is a Windows shortcut files, and we are not in the scope of doing malware analysis in this room. We are just threat hunters. So basically, we're going to use a tool named LinkParser. LinkParser is a tool that's used to disclose the contents of a Windows shortcut file without opening it. So we're going to head to desktop and use link parse followed by the name of the file. And now we get strings output. Let's go over this output. Maybe we can have a clue of what the file does. Scrolling down, we got this command line arguments, and there's what seems to be a PowerShell command being executed. And this one is a base64 encoded string, and there is the location of the icon. It executes an Excel file icon. And now what we have to do, we have to decode this base64. So we're going to have a look at this. And maybe we can use echo pipe this to base64, and we have this command. This is indeed a PowerShell command. As you can see, the PowerShell command creates a new object and then downloads a file from this URL. The URL is files.bpackaging.xyz/update. This is the URL that the script contacts. We call this the C2 server, or the command and control center, because it's being called by the Windows shortcut file as an external communication. The purpose of the call here to the C2 is to download a file. Okay, now we have uncovered the first artifact of this attack. We have uncovered a PowerShell command with a C2 domain. Okay, let's now stop here and go back and answer some questions. What is the email address used to send the phishing email? We found this to be the email address found here. Let's open the mail calendar, and we can see it's from Arthur. This is the email address of the attacker. What's the email address of the victim? It is this one that can be found from the to field. And what is the name of the third-party mail relay service used by the attacker based on the DKIM signature and the list unsubscribe? So DKIM signature, and maybe you have heard about SPF. These are all configuration that you can set on your email, basically to make it look credible and to maybe bypass spam filters. So to do that, we're gonna have to have a look at the mail header. To be able to view the header of this email, we're gonna have to use another mail client. I'm gonna close this one and probably try to open this with Thunderbird. Okay, now to have a look at the mail header, we head to the upper right, click on more, and then click on view source. This will open up the header of the email. And remember that when analyzing a phishing email, analyzing the mail header is of utmost importance. You should analyze the mail header. You should be able to extract details from the mail header. I know there are automated tools that can analyze the mail header automatically, but you should have the skills to be able to analyze it. So here, upon looking at the mail header, we can see the DKIM signature mentioned twice. The first time, as you can see here, we have the domain name that's used to send out the email, and then we have the other email or other domain, elasticemail.com. This is also used to create the DKIM signature. Now, which one is the correct one? The correct one is elastic email, because the first one is the main domain that's used to host the C2 server, and it's also used to serve files to the main malicious payload. This one is also associated with the list unsubscribe, so this is our answer. What is the name of the file inside the encrypted attachment? We already answered this. This is the name of the file. It is invoice. Now what's the password? It was mentioned in the email. And then based on the result of the LinkParser tool, what is the encoded payload found in the command line arguments? We also covered this when we extracted the base64 encoded strings and decoded it to find the C2 domain. That's your answer. Task 3. What are the domains used by the attacker for file hosting and C2? Provide the domains in alphabetical order. Okay, Remember that we found uncovered files with p-packaging XYZ. Now, where does this come from? Let's go back and open the... Okay, so remember that we have got this encoded command, right? And from this encoded command, we have uncovered the below domain. Unfortunately, the other domain that you can see here in the answer will not be found by analyzing the phishing attachment. So sometimes analyzing the file itself isn't enough. We have to use other artifacts or other given data. So going back here, we check what we have. We have a packet capture and we have PowerShell logs. We have a JSON file. Let's interact with this file and extract insights from it. We're going to use a tool named JQ. So JQ is a tool that can be used to interact with JSON files. It's actually a JSON processor, command line JSON processor. You can refer to the room here for use cases of this tool. We're going to apply these use cases on the PowerShell logs we have got. Okay, let's try it. So JQ-R, and then we have to provide the file. Before we do that, let's use cat PowerShell. Okay, JQ-S-C. Using that, we want to extract insights according to the timestamp. So sort logs based on their timestamp. Use -S-C. I'm gonna copy this. Okay. Next, we want to identify the field we want to extract from the PowerShell logs. Here we are dealing with PowerShell logs. So the field that we are interested in most of the time, it is the script block. The script block is the contents of the contains the contents of the PowerShell commands. So to extract this, we have to print values from a specific field. We can use this using again JQ, and we specify the field. In this case, we want to specify the script block text. So we paste this. So here we type script block text, and then we enter. We forgot to use the pipe. Okay, look at this. So I have extracted all the contents of the script block text. We want this to be sorted, and we want also to eliminate the duplicates. So we're going to use Linux command line file processing tools such as sort and unique. And now I've got an output. Remember that this output is sorted in a descending order. So this is the latest command, and this is the first command. Okay, what are these commands? Remember that the shortcut file here, which is invoice, upon execution of this file, it executes a series of commands. And these commands were captured using the packet capture, and also were logged in the PowerShell logs. So that's what we see here. We see the commands that were executed by the email attachment, the invoice. So what happened first? As you can see, the first command that we can interpret is the who am I, and printing the current working directory. Then the attacker proceeded and discovered a password file. The password file is protected_data. It is KDBX. That's the extension, which means that the file is a KeePass file. Then the attacker discovered Microsoft sticky notes files, okay, and then the attacker used IWR, which is a PowerShell command, to download a file. The file here is SQ3 and was saved as SQ3, and then the attacker retrieved another file from the C2 server named SB. Again, the attacker retrieved here or downloaded a PowerShell tool or a PowerShell script. The PowerShell script name is invoke Seatbelt. If we ask Google what is Seatbelt, we can see that Seatbelt is a C# project that performs a number of security-oriented host survey safety checks relevant from both offensive and defensive security perspectives. So it is an enumeration tool. Good, now the attacker is enumerating the machine. Probably the attacker now wants to escalate the privileges and do data exfiltration. Then the attacker called the C2 server again to download a file named update. Then we see a series of commands where the attacker navigates through the file system. Here we see the attacker executing the Seatbelt tool to start the enumeration process, and then the attacker used SQ3 and provided the file Microsoft Sticky Notes as an input to the tool. And here we can see this. Again, using SQ3 to access SQLite database. So this is a tool that attacker downloaded from his C2 server to interact with a SQLite database. And then look at this one. Here we have split, variable named split defined, and what it does, it actually performs a for loop where it actually executes NS lookup with the query with a record, and then it contacts p packaging XYZ with a subdomain that's controlled by the variable line. So here the attacker somehow, maybe he got access to the SQLite database, and look at this SQL command, select everything from the note. Note here is a database or a table under the SQLite. So it looks like the attacker is exfiltrating data now. He found some data in the note table, and then now he is using NS lookup to exfiltrate the data using DNS protocol, and the record type is a record. Next, we have here the attacker using this domain CDN B packaging XYZ. The port is 8080, and then we have hex. So the attacker is encoding the data in hex and then defining what is to be exfiltrated, sorry. So here the attacker is exfiltrating the password database he found earlier. Remember that the attacker earlier spotted a password database. So what he was trying to do, he was trying to exfiltrate the data using NS lookup, okay, and hex as an encoding. Where to? To this destination. So now we know that the attacker got two C2 domains, the main one, okay, and the one that is used for exfiltration, CDNP packaging. That's where it came from. What is the name of the enumeration tool downloaded by the attacker? It was Seatbelt. What is the file accessed by the attacker using the downloaded SQ3 binary? Provide the full path with escape backslashes. We went over this, guys, when we explained the attack chain here. So this is the file. It's an SQLite database. What's the software that uses the file in question 3? It is Microsoft Sticky Notes. What's the name of the exfiltrated file? It is the password database. What type of file uses the KDBX file? It is the KeePass. Some Googling will reveal this. And what is the encoding used during the exfiltration attempt of this is the file? We also highlighted this, and we said it is hex. And lastly, what is the tool used for exfiltration? We also covered this. It is NS lookup. It's commonly used to exfiltrate data maybe to get through firewall, because NS lookup is a tool that's used for regular DNS management. So usually it's allowed. Task 4. What software is used by the attacker to host its presumed payload file server? Okay, now we're analyzing the tools the attacker used. So previously we were actually uncovering the attack, the actual artifacts. Now we want to find out what the attacker used to carry out this attack. So we're looking at the C2 server first. We want to find out the web server used by the attacker. So to do that, we're going to have to use the packet capture provided here. We're going to open this using Wireshark. So what are these? These are the packets that were captured by the sensors during the attack. Okay, the first question, what software is used by the attacker to host its presumed file payload server? Remember that from the previous investigation, we uncovered the main C2 domain. The main C2 domain is P packaging. Inside this, we got files and we got CDN. The one that's responsible for hosting the file server is the files B packaging. What if we search here using this domain? So we type HTTP contains okay, let's see here. So we have narrowed this down to probably 5 packets. Let's have a look at the first one. So right click, click on follow TCP stream, and that's the request to retrieve the SQ3. This is the tool that's used to interact with the SQLite database. Okay, next we're gonna use the stream number here to navigate through the packets in Wireshark. We click on the up arrow. This is 660 packet. Let's go back. Okay, 660. And then we got the response from the server. So here the server is Apache. If we go back, we check the GET request. We can see the response to the request to get the SQ3 file. The server highlighted in the response is a Python server. So that is the Python server. It is not Apache that we saw earlier. So here it is a post request, okay, and the server is Apache. That's a different server used for another purpose. Because this is a post request. It is not a request to retrieve the file. This is the request to the CDN P packaging that's used for exfiltration. So the attacker here, it's useful to learn that the attacker used CDN P packaging for exfiltration, and he used post requests to send out the data. But for file server, he used the Python server here to serve the files. So the server is Python. What HTTP method is used by the C2 for the output of the commands executed by attacker? It's post. We just covered this. What's the protocol used during the exfiltration? It is DNS because he used NS lookup. What is the password of the exfiltrated file? So remember that the attacker has exfiltrated a password database. Okay. Now the attacker used DNS protocol along with NS lookup to send out the files. So to be able to extract the password, we have to uncover the contents of the file password database, and also we have to uncover the contents of the database that the attacker has interacted with or has accessed. Remember that the attacker has let's see here. So here the attacker has stumbled upon a database, SQLite, and he just retrieved something from the note table. Probably this is what enabled the attacker to access the password database, because the password database is protected with a password. In order for the attacker to access it, they have to retrieve the password from somewhere. So probably that's the avenue the attacker has found perfect to extract the password. So probably we have to find out the contents of this. We can use maybe Wireshark again, and we can look in the exfiltrated data. Okay, so how to find this? Remember that the attacker used the tool SQ3 to interact with the database. So if we look for this, for signs of using this tool in the packets, and we got a number of packets. Let's start with the first one. So that is a GET request to the CDN packaging, and that's the response. And in the response, we see here the command we saw earlier. It is the Microsoft, it includes the Microsoft sticky notes, and here the attacker accesses the Plum database. It's an SQLite database, and he's executing or retrieving everything from the note table. Okay, looks like we are close. Let's see the response from the server. And in the response, we have got this. This is a decimal string. We're gonna have to decode this. So we're gonna copy that and use Cyberchef. when you use it from decimal, we actually decoded this, and we can see here the text strings, and there is a master password, and this is the master password here, up here. Just match the columns. Okay, the master password can be found from here. This is the password that the attacker has retrieved from the SQLite database, and then use this password to unlock the password database that he has exfiltrated. So that's the password. What is the credit card number stored inside the exfiltrated data? Okay, to do this, we're gonna have to retrieve the actual password database, because the credit card number is stored inside the password database the attacker has retrieved, right? To be able to extract the credit card number, we're gonna have to open up the password database. So now we have got the password to the password database. All we have to do is to reconstruct the file. To reconstruct the file, we're gonna have to do that using the exfiltrated data. Okay, we're gonna go back. We're not gonna use Wireshark because Wireshark will not do us any favor here. We're gonna use a tool named T-Shark. And we have covered some tutorials on T-Shark. Let's see if it's installed. And we've got T-Shark installed here. Okay, fine. T-Shark-R, we provide the capture file, and then -y because we want to filter according to the protocol. The protocol we're interested in is DNS because the data that were exfiltrated using the protocol DNS. And then we specify -t because we want to filter the fields. And the field we want to filter is the query name, -e, DNS query name. Okay, what we want to extract here. Remember that the attacker has exfiltrated the data using DNS records. So all the data, the file, everything will be found in the queries here. But we want to use some filtering. We're gonna start with the main domain name the attacker used as a C2 server. So it is, we're gonna ignore the subdomains. We're gonna focus on the full domain. So P packaging. Let's see here. And this is the output what we get. As you can see, the output needs some sorting. So here, look at this. This is the main domain, and this is what's being exfiltrated. As you can see, all is encoded. So we have to extract these from the output. We can use Linux command line processing tools. And specifically, I'm going to use cut. The delimiter here is the dot. So we're going to specify field 1, that's field 1, that's field 2, and that's field 3. The delimiter is dot. We're going to have to provide this to the cut command in order for this to work. -f1, we're extracting the first field and specifying the delimiter, -t, and now we execute. So now we have isolated the data that was exfiltrated. Fine. We want now to cancel the fluff from here, namely the spaces, the new lines, and you want to cancel this. You want to filter this out. This is the extension of the first subdomain, CDN, and probably there is the other extension of the other subdomain, which is files. So also we have to take this into consideration. So grep -v-e files and then we use -e again, CDN. Now we have ruled CDN and files out. We have ruled out the subdomains. Now we want to sort this using unique to get rid of the duplicates. Okay, now I want to cancel any new lines found in the output. So we use tr-d and we specify the new line. Of course, you escape the backslash. Okay, let's have this to an output file named maybe out. Let's have a look at the file. So what's all that? This is the exfiltrated data. Remember, you're gonna have to copy this and go to Cybersecurity. It is an hexadecimal format, so you're gonna have to specify from hex. And that's what we get. So here, maybe we can just save this and name it as maybe file.kdbx. This is the assumed password file that the attacker has exfiltrated. Okay. So now we have to provide the password. Okay, going back. Remember that this is the password for the database file. Let's see if it works. And it does. Look at this company card. And if you look at the bottom, you can see the details here. We have the company card, the password, the creation time, modification time, the account number. That's what you want. And I copy this and have this as an answer. So that was it for the first challenge. Okay, next challenge, Boogeyman 2. And again, we are with the same thing. We have a phishing email that compromised the life out of the logistics company. So see here, this is the phishing email, and there, of course, there's supposed to be an attachment. We're going to analyze the attachment, and we're going to use the resources given by the team. So we have a copy of the phishing email, and we have a memory dump of the victim's workstation. Okay, so let's start by opening up the email. This is the email body, and this is the attachment. I'm gonna go ahead and save the attachment. And here, as you can see, this is a document. The first thing I want to do, rather threat hunter, you want to calculate the MD5 sum of this file. Why though? Because you might want to copy this and look it up in VirusTotal. You want to extract insights. So here we are, just VirusTotal. I'm just doing this, not required by the questions in the task. So here we can see there are 38 hits on this attachment. So it's indeed a malicious attachment. You can click on details. You can find when it was first submitted. And we can see the actual nature of the file. Now, this is a Word document, right? So a malicious Word document is a document that executes a macro routine. To extract macro routines, we're going to have to use Ollie tools or Ollie VPA. Okay, let's first go back and see what's required to answer. What is the email of the victim employee? Let's see here. So it was addressed to Maxine Beck. That's the email of the victim employee. What's the name of the attached malicious document? That's straightforward. What's the MD5 hash? We already extracted the hash. What URL is used to download the stage 2 payload based on the document's macro? What is stage 1 payload? The stage 1 payload is the malicious attachment. Upon executing the malicious attachment, there is a macro routine that is getting in the way here. This macro routine maybe calls a C2 server and retrieves another payload. We call this stage 2 payload. You have to find out details about this stage 2 attack. To do that, we're going to have to analyze the attachment. This is the Microsoft Word document, so we're going to use Ollie VPA tools. We already covered these in previous videos. We're going to do that again because this is a practical scenario. Ollie VPA and the name of the tool. Let's just zoom out because the text here will get through my eyes. Okay. Okay, so the tool detected a macro routine. Name auto open, and here we can see the path. And then we can see a GET request to a C2 domain. That's the C2 domain. And the request retrieves a PNG file named update. And it saves this to a file with the extension GS. This is a JavaScript. And what happens next, you can see that the macro routine uses this binary W script to execute the JavaScript. That is stage 2. Okay. Now you may want to Google W script. Have a look here at this. So according to Microsoft, W script is a Windows script host file. Provides an environment in which users can execute scripts in various languages that use various object models to perform tasks. So it's exactly what the attacker wants. The attacker wants to execute a JavaScript file. It was stored in this path on the victim machine. Scrolling down, we can analyze the macro routine here. So it auto executes based on the auto open keyword. It runs when the Word document is opened. And we can see the other routines that were flagged as suspicious. So may write to a file, may create a text file, may run an executable file. That's the description of all the other routines. Okay, now I've got everything we want about the stage 2 payload. Let's go back. What URL is used to download stage 2 payload? That's the URL. What's the name of the process that executed the newly downloaded stage 2 payload? That's the name of the process. And what's the full path of the malicious stage 2 payload? You already answered this. That's the path. What is the PID of the process that executed the stage 2 payload? Now, all the VPA is out of the picture. We want process IDs. We're going to have to use the volatility tool to analyze the memory dump. Navigate to artifacts. Here we have the memory dump of the compromised machine. So using volatility, specifying the name of the dump, and then we use Windows PS3. That's a plugin used to display all the processes in a hierarchical format, showcasing the child-parent relationship between the processes. These are the processes. Now, if you want to just filter all of the mess here, you just have to use grep. And we can use the name of the executable file or the binary. Basically, here we paste this. You can see that this is the file, but we don't see the PID details. Okay, let's go back to the original one. So this is the actual PID of the process, and we can see here the parent process ID 1124. If we look for 1124, we can see it is Windows Word. That's the process responsible for opening up the Microsoft document. So that's the process ID, and that's the parent process ID. What URL is used to download the malicious binary executed by stage 2 payload? Let's go back and refresh the memory here. So from above here, we found that this is the full URL that's used to serve the stage 2 payload. However, here we're looking to the stage 2 payload, meaning the payload here, yeah, this is the URL, but actually the correct answer is the one that comes with an AXC as the extension of the file. So this is the C2 server, that's correct, but that's not the correct URL. To extract the correct URL, maybe we have to use strings here, the strings tool. And then we use the grep. We just use the C2 domain that we found earlier as a clue to extract all occurrences of callbacks to this domain. Look at this one. You can see that this is the one that we found earlier while analyzing the Microsoft Office document. We can see another one here, another call to the exact same domain, exact same URL, but with different extension of the file update. This time it is an executable file. So what is the URL? That's the URL. What's the PID of the malicious process used to establish the C2 connection? To do that, we can use a plugin named netscan. So back to the same command, netscan. Netscan displays the network activity. We're looking to find clues of using update executable to establish a network connection. We're going to have to find this in the app of the netscan. When finding this, we're going to be able to extract parameters such as IP addresses, ports that the executable used to perform the callback to the C2 server. And there is. So it uses UDP protocol to perform the callbacks, and we can see the process ID, it is 6216. What is the full path of the malicious process used to establish the connection? So here we don't see the full path. You can extract the full path probably by attempting to extract the DLLs. So we specify the process ID in the command. So Windows DLL list -PID. Let's see here. So these are the DLLs used by the process. If you look closely, you can see the column file output highlights the file updater, and we can see the full path where it was stored on the victim machine. So it's C Windows tasks. What is the IP address and port of the C2 connection initiated by the malicious binary? The malicious binary here is the updater. So updater established a C2 connection as suspected. Now here in the output of the net scan, we cannot find the parameters that we hope to find. No, actually we found them. Here they are. So in the updater here, we can see that there's an attempt to contact this IP address on this port. I thought they don't exist here. And the same here, we can see the process updater with the connection that was closed now. The state is closed, but it was attempted before to contact this IP on this port. So that's the IP and that's the port. Is this correct? It is correct. What is the full file path of the malicious email attachment based on the memory dump? We want to find out where this email attachment was stored on the victim machine, but we want to find this based on the memory dump. We can do that using the file scan plugin. File scan plugin shows us all the files accessed, modified, opened on the victim machine. So file scan. You might want to use the file name here as a filter. Gonna copy the file name and use it in the grep command. I want to stop this and use the grep, supply with the file name. Alright, so we see the exact location where it was stored, but without the extension. Actually, there is the extension, but there is numbers and some, two parentheses come with it. That's why it doesn't show up the first attempt. What is the MD5 hash of the malicious document? We already did this actually. That's the hash. MD5 hash from here. What URL is used to download stage 2 payload based on the documents macro? Let me rephrase that. What URL is used to download? Okay, this is the URL that we found earlier while analyzing the attachment using only VPA. What is the name of the process? Actually, I think I'm going backwards here. Let me scroll down, restore my track. So we were here. We answer with the full path. Okay, next, the attacker implanted a scheduled task right after establishing the C2 callback. What's the full command used by the attacker to maintain persistent access? So what happened here, the attacker, after retrieving the updater and executing it, he actually created a scheduled task to maintain persistence. How to find this scheduled task? You're gonna have to rely on the memory dump. Remember that all scheduled tasks come with a command, are created with the command that comes with this keyword first. So if we use strings again, and in the grep, we supply grep with the keyword of the command. Okay. Because there is no direct plugin that shows you the scheduled tasks, so you're gonna have to rely on file processing tools in Linux. Let's have a look at the first one. So here, CMD was used to execute a PowerShell command. The PowerShell command creates a scheduled task that executes CMD, and then we have this encoded PowerShell command and a scheduled task named updater that executes on a daily basis. So if you ask me what is the scheduled task, the answer is this. So that was it. Right, now coming to the last scenario. In this last scenario, the Boogeyman group has targeted the CEO of the logistics company. So what they did, they actually have sent an email to the CEO whose name was Ivan. So Ivan received an email, and upon receiving the email, he noticed that there is an attachment. According to the report of the incident, Ivan proceeded and opened the attachment, which resulted in machine compromise. Okay, now that's the attachment. As you can see, it's in PDF, and it was saved and stored under the downloads folder. That's the attachment. It's in PDF. All right. We also notified and told that the incident occurred between 29 and 30 of August 2023 or 2023. Okay, that's very important information for us to begin the investigation. In this case study or in this scenario, we're going to use Kibana. In Kibana, we have ingested and actually imported all the Windows event logs pertinent to the Ivan machine. So basically, we're going to log in now to Kibana. After we log in, we're going to have to set the timeline to match the time of the incident. So it's August 29, August 30. I'm going to click on the menu, go to Discover, and from the Discover, we're going to make sure all the parameters are set correctly. First thing is the index. The index is or has to be WinLogBeat. These are the logs imported from Windows. And next here we're going to have to set the date. So we're going to go to Absolute, and from here we're going to select August 2023. And remember, it starts 29. Okay, and for the now we're going to select again August 30. So August 30, 2023. Okay, let's have a look now. Approximately we have around 2,756. We're not sure if this is the correct number of logs that we're supposed to receive here, but what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select 28 and here select 31 just to make sure we are on the right track. So now the number of logs is updated. So we have 28 hits. Okay, the first question. What is the PID of the process that executed the initial stage 1 payload? Remember that the initial stage 1 payload is the actual attachment that Ivan has opened. This is the first payload that is delivered to the victim. We call it stage 1 payload. Usually, stage 1 payload precedes stage 2, and stage 2 precedes stage 3, so on and so forth. Depends on the attack complexity and the structure. Since now we're analyzing the Windows event logs using Kibana, it's going to be easy to extract the insights because Kibana is actually easy to work with, and here we're going to use that to analyze the attack and answer the questions. So what is the PID of the process that executed the initial stage 1 payload? We're looking for the process that executed the payload. Remember that Ivan is the person who executed the payload, right? But here, once the payload executed, there is a process that executed this attachment. We're gonna have to look for this process. How to do that? We're gonna have to rely on the given given information here. We have the attachment, it is in PDF, and remember that also we have the email body here. We're gonna have to use this information to look for the process. So here in the search bar, we can look for the name of the attachment. The name of the attachment is Project Financial Summary _ Quarter 3. We can use this to look for any clues. Going back here, we use 2 double quotes and we search. So here, nothing match your search criteria. Okay, let's try without the double quotes. Right, if we remove the PDF, okay, let's go back. Let's try HTML, because at the end this is an email attachment, and maybe Ivan stumbled upon some web page or something. So we're gonna click or type HTML, and here we have 5 hits. First thing we want to do is to sort the timing. So here we have the events sorted in chronological order or starting from the oldest to the newest. Remember that we're looking for processes here, so we're gonna have to sort the columns. So we add process command line to the list of columns, and we can add
process parent command line. You can add the process name. Okay, that's fine for now. So among these entries, we have one entry where the process command line actually invokes the PDF attachment. As you can see, the actual extension of the attachment is HTA. HTA stands for HTML application. It's a common way to use HTML attachments to execute malicious code or to execute binaries. So whenever you see this extension, remember this explanation, right? So they use this executable to execute the attachment. So there you go. Now we have the name of the executable. Now we need to find out the process ID of this executable. Let's have a look here if we can find anything that has to do with PID maybe. So process parent PID and process ID. You can add this. We can see that the process ID is 6392. Okay, now the stage 1 payload attempted to implant a file to another location. What is the full command line value of this execution? So usually when this got executed, the question states that there was another implant or another file that was created as a result of executing stage 1 payload. We need to find out the full command line that resulted in the implant of this file. So one way to do that is to use the view surrounding documents here to view the events before and after this event. Let's have a look here. Okay, so after this, let's see here. So we have, this is a command we're interested, and after that command, so it is 2351, and then right after this command, there was another command that got executed. It used the xcopy, and it actually delivered another file. The file name is review.dat. So this makes me believe that this is the file that was implanted after executing the malicious attachment. So now the question is, what is the full command line value of this execution? Right, so I'm gonna have to copy this. Okay, the implanted file, which was review.dat, was eventually used and executed by the stage 1 payload. What is the full command line value of this execution? Let's go back and see what happened after. So after that, the run-dll system executable was used to execute, as you can see, the review.dat. So if you're looking for the full command, this is the full command. Okay, so up until now we have one payload, project financial summary. It's supposed to be PDF, but in fact it is not PDF. It is an HTML application. When it was downloaded, what happened? It executed another command, which in turn saved or implanted a file named review.dat, which in turn executed or was executed by this executable file. We see after the stage 1 payload executed a couple of commands, there was another PowerShell command that got executed. And as can be seen, this PowerShell command created a scheduled task for persistence. The scheduled task is configured to run daily at 6 a.m. okay, to establish the persistence. So if you're asked what is the full command, that's your full command. But we'll ask you what's the name of the scheduled task. Let's go back and see the name of the scheduled task here. Let's see here. Scheduled task dash execute. Okay, seems to me that the new scheduled task name is review. That's the name of the scheduled task. Okay, so far so good. The execution of the implanted file, which was review, inside the machine has initiated a potential C2 connection. What is the IP and port used by this connection? So here we're looking for an entirely different pattern of events. I'm gonna go back, and here we're looking for network connection events. To be able to filter for network connection events, we're gonna have to use the event ID 3 in this monitor. Okay, let's refresh. Okay. event code. Okay, we're gonna have to add this to the filter here. So we're gonna add the filter, and here use event.code, and the value here has to be 3 for network connections. See, we have 21,362 events. Let's see if we have destination IP here. We can add this to the list of columns. We can add destination port. So across all the entries, we have the same IP address, ends with 151, and the same port. Okay, looks like this is our answer. So our IP is this. All right, next question. The attacker has discovered that the current access is a local administrator. What's the name of the process used by the attacker to execute a UAC bypass? UAC bypass is a user account control mechanism in Windows to make sure that only authorized users or elevated or privileged users can install and execute executable binaries or install programs. This is a mechanism to protect Windows operating systems from being from Windows privilege escalation, so that regular users or attackers cannot escalate to administrators. What are the clues here? Remember that the attacker used the attachment as a stage 1 attack or stage 1 payload. In turn, there was another stage 2 payload that delivered the full attack, which was the review.dat. This is the dat file. It reminds me of the F-Society dat featured in Mr. Robot. So that's the review.dat file that was responsible for the full stage 2 attack. So we're going to go back and use it. In our filter, we're going to use this. Okay, back here. What's the name of the process used by the attacker to execute a UAC bypass? Let's go back and have a look at the commands executed here. We're gonna make sure that they're all sorted in an ascending order. Okay, so we have an X copy here, which was the binary that planted the review.dat file, and then we have the review.dat being executed by the run DLL, and then we have the scheduled task being created by the review.dat, and then we have a series of commands, and then we have a PowerShell command that was also responsible for creating the scheduled task. Scrolling all the way down, let's see here. We have then the command prompt being used to execute whoami, and then enumerate the users, and then we see the enumerate the administrators group, and then we have this. Okay, so the question is, what's the name of the process used by the attacker to execute UAC bypass? This is still not clear here. Gonna have to continue all the way down. We see this. System32 FOD helper, and this is the parent process. Let's scroll up, see which one was the parent. So this column is the parent command line, and this is the process command line. Scrolling back down here, we see that the run DLL, or sorry, the whoami process, its parent is the process executing the review.dat, and we see FOD helper here was also a process whose parent is same stage 2 payload. And then what happened here? We see a PowerShell command being executed defining a credential object, which contains the username Alan Smith and the password. And the parent process of this PowerShell command is again the process responsible for executing the stage 2 payload, which makes me believe that the stage 2 payload is responsible for all of these commands. So the UAC bypass was the work of review.dat in the first degree, and in the second degree it was triggered by the FOD helper. So that's the name of the process. Okay, if you are curious, you can have a look at FOD helper here, see what it does. So we have links hinting that FOD helper is a common process used to perform UAC bypass. Without looking in Google, it's very clear from the context, right? Okay, next. Having a high privileged machine access, the attacker attempted to dump the credentials inside the machine. What's the GitHub link used by the attacker to download a tool for credential dumping? Well, it's very clear that one of the most popular tools to perform credential dumping is Mimikatz. Alright, now we're gonna have to prove it. It is Mimikatz. So here's the hint, GitHub link. A GitHub link was used by the attacker to retrieve the tool, so we can use this to extract the answer. So here we can search with GitHub and see what do we have. Okay, the first link is this. Let's have a look here. So this is a PowerShell command that retrieved this link. Power view, but power view is not used for credential dumping, so you're gonna have to dismiss this entry. Next link, use parsploit. Okay, and the next one, same like as before. So all these links download PowerView except this one. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, look at this. This is a link to GitHub and it downloads Mimikatz. So if you're looking for the answer, this is the answer for the question. Now this one is easy because the attacker has already downloaded Mimikatz and will use it to dump the credentials. So just look for clues of using Mimikatz here. So Mimikatz. I used an asterisk here because I want to tell Kibana or Elasticsearch to include everything that may come before the keyword Mimikatz. Let's have a look at the entries. So we're told that the attacker has obtained access to another machine by virtue of new credentials. So we want to look for a command that's used to dump credentials. Let's scroll down. Okay. So these are to download Mimikatz. We're gonna stop here. This one. C users administrator Mimikatz. Here Mimikatz was executed. Let's have a look. Okay, this one. LSA dump, DC sync, but no credentials spotted here. We're gonna have to look at the next command, LSA dump. We're looking for instances of using the extension URLSA here. So here we can look for this. This is a plugin in Mimikatz that allows you to dump credentials. Let's see if it's used somewhere. You have to go up because we want to go with the chronological list of the events. So we have this one, but no credentials. Next one, we have this command. And in this command, we see pair of credentials. So the user is itadmin, and this is the NTLM hash. But this is the user that we're supposed to answer with. New pair of credentials. It's not specified whether these pair belong to an admin user. So we're gonna have to assume it is for the IT admin. So IT admin, and we can copy the hash. If it doesn't work, we can look for other instances of other pair of credentials. So it's correct. All right. So now the attacker has got access to another machine. Using the new credentials, the attacker attempted to enumerate accessible file shares. So now the attacker has logged in using these credentials. Now they're attempting to enumerate accessible file shares accessible to this user. What's the name of the file accessed by the attacker from a remote share? Right, looks like we're gonna have to go over with the chronological list of events. So here, after this command was executed, we see here a PowerShell command that used Mimikatz, and we see then another user, Alan Smith. We want to see instances of enumerating file shares. Go back here. Now we are assuming that the attacker used a tool to perform the enumeration, right? So the attacker has to download this tool from some server, right, or some website. If you go back to searching for instances including the GitHub, we can see that there is an entry highlighting PowerView. Now PowerView is a very prominent tool used for enumeration. So basically this might be the tool that the attacker has retrieved in order to perform the file server enumeration. Now how about if we now filter or use this in our search? So PowerView. Now let's have a look here. Let's see if it was used in some command here to enumerate the file shares. Let's see if it has any connection with the file shares. Okay, let's establish a timeline here. So here it was first downloaded, and then take a look at this one. Invoke share finder. Let's have a look here at more details, shall we? Now here the attacker used PowerView and invoked share finder. Okay, but for what? Of course, it is to enumerate the file shares. Now we have to find out the file that the attacker has found. So probably here we're gonna have to look up the invoke share finder module. Use it here in the search so we can extract all the events that highlighted the invoke share finder. Okay, let's have a look here. So all these events include usage of share finder. We're gonna have to find an actual command that contains the file name that was found. We have verified the theory that the attacker has retrieved PowerView from GitHub and invoked share finder to be able to retrieve the shares, and of course along with the files that are stored in these shares. Now we're gonna have to find out what is the name of the file or the /files that the attacker have stumbled upon. Alright, one quick way to find the share name that has been accessed is to use the host name, okay, and the pattern that's used to or why a share is accessed. Remember that when a share is accessed, we use two backslashes and the name of the host name. So the host name is WKSTN. So we're gonna use this in the search. I actually have it here, so we're gonna use it right away. Fresh. And we see here that PowerShell is being used to, as you can see, enumerate the file system share under this host. As you can see, this is the first directory that is enumerated, IT files, and then let's see what are the files that have been accessed. We see a PowerShell script was also enumerated. The name of the PowerShell script is IT_automation. Let's see the other files. Okay, so we have two files, or actually we have one file, happens to be PowerShell script, and one directory, which is IT files. The name of the file is IT_automation. After getting the contents of the remote file, the attacker used the new credentials to move laterally. What's the new set of credentials discovered by the attacker? So the attacker opened this file and they found two actually set of credentials, a username and a hash. The attacker used them to move laterally. We're gonna have to find out these credentials. Usually when a set of credentials is found in Windows, the way to move laterally is to create the credentials or save them in a PowerShell command. So basically we do that using ps credential. If we look for instances of using ps credential, probably we're gonna be able to find these credentials. Let's see here. Let's have a look here. The first entry here, we have this command that uses PowerShell and this command creates credentials. The pair of credentials are, as you can see, Alan Smith, that is your name, and this is the password. This is the credentials that the attacker has found inside the automation script. So to answer the question, we're gonna have to copy this as the username and this as the password and separate them with a colon. So this is the complete answer. What is the hostname of the attacker's target machine for its lateral movement attempt? Now once the attacker got access to another set of credentials, they will use them to log into another machine. So we are asked to find out the host name of this machine. So basically this is the full command, and here we can see that the attacker has created a credential object using ps credential to create username Alan Smith as username, and this is the password using convert to secure string, and we can see that the computer specified to be accessed is this one. This is the host name of the new computer, or the computer that's accessed. Using the malicious command executed by the attacker from the first machine to move laterally. what is the parent process name of the malicious command executed on the second compromised machine? So the attacker, remember that he executed this command, right, on the first machine. The first machine is the attacker's machine. This command executed to get him access to the second machine. The second machine is 1327. Now on that machine, the attacker executed another command. You have to find out what is the parent process name of the malicious command executed on the second compromised machine. Okay, let's go back here and use the host name of the target machine or the new machine to have a look. So we have 4,733 events. Remember that we're looking for the PID of the process, the parent process name of the malicious command executed on the second compromised machine. So if we add another filter here to use event code, and we're going to use event code 1, that is for process creation. We want to see all the processes that will respond on this machine. Okay, we're gonna have to use this time an ascending order of the events. Okay, as you can see here, we have a parent command line that includes PowerShell. And then we have this command, windlogbeat. Then we have services. Let's have a look again at the question. What's the parent process of the malicious command? So we're looking for a malicious command. Probably it is a PowerShell with maybe base 64. Okay, let's stop here. So we have this parent command line that is PowerShell, and we have a command here that executes PowerShell again to maybe enumerate the share named IT files. We have covered this before probably. Let's scroll down. Okay, let's have a look at this. Here we have the service host, and we have this process WSM. Let's have a look at this one. So it's PowerShell remote session. Yeah, it is a Windows management instrumentation. Okay. And then we see who am I being used, invoked, and the parent is this process. Okay, let's continue further, and we see again the service host, parent for this process again, and we see this process one more time, parent for a PowerShell command that's included with base 64, and then we see command line invoked. So probably the first executable here we're looking for is this one, the Windows management instrumentation. That's the name of the executable file. That's the parent process of the malicious executable command. So here, what's the parent process name? It is this. What is the child process name? It is who am I, or it is this one. This is the child process. This is the malicious process that you're supposed to find, and that was executed on the second machine by the attacker using Alan Smith as the username, or maybe the set of credentials. Let's answer this. Okay. The attacker then dumped the hashes in the second machine. What is the username and hash of the newly dumped credentials? Probably gonna have to follow the order of the events, because the attacker has executed further commands down the road. Let's see if there are any dumped credentials. Here we see Mimikatz being downloaded, so this means we got closer to the answer. Okay, we have IT admin, we've covered this, and we have this user administrator and this hash. So this user is the administrator username of this new machine, and this is the NTLM hash. So now we got the answer for this question. After gaining access to the domain controller, so using the credentials now, the admin credentials, now the attacker is able to log into the domain controller. So after gaining access to the domain controller, the attacker attempted to dump the hashes via DC sync attack. Aside from the administrator account, what account did the attacker dump? So DC sync attack is one of the prominent Active Directory attacks where the attacker gains access to the domain controller and will be able to dump the hashes from the domain controller. Okay, now we have to change the filter here. Instead of handling or looking at the events that are surrounding the second machine that the attacker accessed. Now we want to look at the events that were extracted from the DC01 or the domain controller. Effectively, we're looking at the commands the attacker has executed on the domain controller. So here we're going to change this and use DC01. Or instead of doing that, we can just add another filter. It's going to be more effective. So add the filter, and we use host name. It's going to be is DC01. That's the name of the host name. I'm going to hit save, and that's the only way to find what are the commands the attacker executed as part of the DC sync attack. Let's scroll up and follow based on an ascending order. Okay, so here a PowerShell was used, and then a scripted block, the host name. Then we have this one. Let's scroll down, see if there is an indication of DC sync attack. Scrolling down, so that's the end of it. Let's cancel this filter. Okay, we're going back up. What if we search for DC sync? Because when conducting a DC sync attack, you actually use Mimikatz with the keyword DC sync as part of a plugin named LSA dump. So here, if we search for DC sync, and we have two matches. Let's have a look at this one. C user administrators, Mimikatz LSA dump, DC sync / domain quick logistics / user backup DA, and the other one uses the user administrator. Okay, we have our match here. What's the question? After getting access to the domain controller, the attacker attempted to dump the hashes via DC sync attack. What is the other user? The other user is backup DA. So it is like that. Backup DA, and we got the answer. Lastly, after dumping the hashes, the attacker attempted to download another remote file to execute ransomware. What is the link used by the attacker to download the ransomware binary? So the attacker did this from the domain controller machine. So all we have to do is to cancel this filter, and it's still we're still inside the domain controller. We are looking for the list of commands executed to see if there are any indications of retrieving a file from an external link. Probably this file is an executed. Okay, this time I'm gonna use the machine is kind of slow because it's at the end, it's a virtual machine. I'm going to use a descending order. Finally, we have got something to look at. These are encoded commands. Let's have a look at this one. So here there is a file downloaded from this URL, and the file name is ransom buggy. As you can see, that it's very clear that this is the file we're looking for. So we're going to copy the URL and finish this challenge. Okay, so that was it.